the fallen city of Samaria, a kingdom that forgot its God. Have you ever wondered how a city, once chosen to be the heart of a powerful kingdom, could rise to glory, thrive for generations, and then vanish completely, leaving behind only ruins and whispers in the wind? This is not just a story about an ancient city. It's the story of how faith was traded for comfort, how devotion turned into deception, and how an entire kingdom lost its soul. The city on the hill. For 158 years, there stood a city carved into the heart of Israel's mountains. It was called Samaria, the proud capital of the northern kingdom. Built 55 kilometers north of Jerusalem, it rose like a fortress on a steep hill surrounded by fertile valleys. From afar, its terraces looked like steps reaching toward heaven, each level a symbol of order, strength, and prosperity. But inside those walls, something deeply unsettling was happening. The Bible tells us that in Samaria, parents burned their own children as sacrifices to foreign gods. Fathers and mothers, once followers of the Lord of Israel, turned their backs on him, offering the lives of their sons and daughters to idols made of stone and bronze. How could that happen? What could drive an entire people, blessed with abundance, to embrace darkness so willingly? Why did a city that claimed to be religious fall into such horror? To answer that, we must step back in time, into the streets of Samaria, long before its fall. We must see how its people lived, what they believed, and how their everyday choices slowly shaped their destiny. Because Samaria didn't collapse in a single day. Its destruction began in the quiet corners of its homes, around dinner tables, in whispered prayers, and in the burning incense offered to gods that never spoke. A kingdom divided. It all began with ambition. After the reign of Solomon, Israel split into two kingdoms, Judah in the south, with Jerusalem as its holy center, and Israel in the north, whose kings wanted their own capital, their own temples, their own identity. One of those kings, Omri, found the perfect hill to build his throne. According to the book of 1 Kings, he bought it from a man named Shemer, and there he built a city on terraces, layer upon layer of stone carved into the mountain. At the top, royal palaces and lush gardens caught the sunrise first. Below them, wealthy merchants lived in houses of carved wood and ivory, and at the bottom, the poor labored in narrow homes of mud and stone. From dawn to dusk, the city pulsed with life. Before sunrise, the echo of water jars opening filled the air, cisterns creaking, ropes pulling, buckets clanking. Every family had to draw enough water for the entire day before the heat made it unbearable. In those moments, Samaria felt alive and peaceful. Children played in courtyards, women ground grain on stone slabs, men repaired tools beneath the shade. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. It was a city full of sound and rhythm, built on faith, or so it seemed. The hidden altars. But behind the noise of daily life, another rhythm was growing. Every house had a small altar, placed right next to the oven or near the beds where children slept. There, families burned incense and whispered prayers. But not all those prayers were to the God of Israel. Many homes had small figurines of Baal and Asherah, foreign deities promising rain, fertility, and prosperity. At first, people said it was harmless, a way to honor all powers that might bless their crops or children. But soon, what began as curiosity became devotion, and devotion became addiction. It was in those hidden corners, inside ordinary homes, that the faith of a nation began to fracture. Samaria stood on the crossroads of empires. From the north came traders from Phoenicia with their purple dyes and carved ivory. From the south came Egyptian caravans carrying gold and spices. Wealth flowed through the city, but with it came new ideas, new idols, and new gods. Religion became a marketplace. Faith traded like a luxury good. The richer the family, the more elaborate their shrines became. The more power they gained, the more distant they grew from the God who once freed them from Egypt, the whisper before the fall. And that's where our story truly begins. Imagine standing at the top of the terraces at sunrise, looking down as thousands of people start their day, unaware that their city is already dying from within. They draw water, bake bread, and bow before their household gods. They think they are safe behind stone walls. But in heaven, judgment is already stirring. Because the story of Samaria is not just about one city. It's about the moment when belief becomes convenience, when truth becomes tradition, and when love for God is replaced by love for comfort. And if history teaches us anything, it's that no city, no empire, no kingdom can stand forever when its heart turns away from its creator. So what really happened in Samaria? What did daily life look like for the people who lived on that sacred hill? And what secrets still lie buried beneath the stones of a city that forgot its God? Let's step inside its walls and witness the world of Samaria before the fall. The fall of Samaria, the heart that turned away. The morning sun climbs higher above Samaria's walls. The sound of footsteps fills the streets. Sandals brushing dust, merchants shouting prices, children chasing each other between stalls. From a distance, the city seems peaceful, but peace in Samaria is only an illusion, because beneath its beauty lies a quiet rot, a spiritual disease spreading from house to house, from altar to altar. A city blessed and blinded. Samaria had everything: fertile soil, trade routes that connected nations, walls strong enough to withstand any army. Its people were proud, self-sufficient, and deeply religious. But their religion had changed. No longer did their prayers rise to the God who had led their ancestors through the Red Sea. Now, they prayed to Baal, the storm god of the Canaanites, believing he controlled the rain and the harvest. They believed their success came from their own hands and from idols made by those same hands. When drought struck, they built new shrines. When crops flourished, they thanked Baal instead of Yahweh. They believed they were wise, but in truth they were blind to the quiet voice of the prophets who warned them, "Turn back to the Lord your God, or the land will drink your tears instead of rain." But who listens to warnings when life seems good? Wealth became their God. Pleasure became their purpose. And faith became nothing more than a decoration on their walls. The days of King Ahab. The rot deepened when King Ahab took the throne. Under his reign, Samaria reached its height and its lowest point. Ahab built palaces of ivory, imported marble from Tyre, and filled his courts with foreign gods. He married Jezebel, the Phoenician princess, a woman of breathtaking beauty and iron will. But she brought with her the worship of Baal and Asherah. In her temples, hundreds of priests danced before carved idols, their chants echoing through the night. The smell of burning incense rose over the city, mingled with cries of sacrifice. The people said, "Look, Baal has blessed us. The rains have come. Our fields are full." But every blessing came with a cost. Piece by piece, their covenant with God was forgotten. And yet, God did not abandon them. He sent a man, a prophet, whose voice burned like fire. Elijah, the voice in the storm. From the wilderness of Gilead came Elijah, a man clothed in rough garments, his eyes fierce with conviction. He stood before Ahab and said with thunder in his voice, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, there shall be neither dew nor rain in the land, except at my word." The king laughed. Jezebel mocked. But then the skies grew silent. The rivers dried up. The soil cracked beneath the sun. Year after year, no rain fell. The people grew desperate, offering greater sacrifices, louder prayers. But the idols gave no answer. And in that silence, they began to remember. They began to ask themselves, "Have we forgotten the one who gave us this land?" Elijah's story is well known. The fire from heaven, the victory on Mount Carmel. But what's often forgotten is why it happened. Because Samaria had lost the difference between worship and idolatry, between faith and superstition. God was not punishing them out of anger. He was calling them, pleading with them to return. Everyday life in a dying kingdom. For a moment, after Elijah's triumph, it seemed hope would return. But when Ahab died and his son took the throne, the people drifted again. Generations passed, and with them, the last echoes of true faith faded into noise. Still, life in Samaria continued. The markets overflowed with goods, baskets of olives, figs, and pomegranates. Musicians played in the courtyards. Children ran barefoot through the dust, laughing. At sunset, the hills turned gold, and the people gathered on rooftops to share stories, to sing, to feast. To the eye, it was paradise. But the prophets saw something else. They saw injustice. They saw the poor crushed beneath the weight of taxes and greed. They saw merchants cheating with false scales. They saw priests blessing sin in the name of peace. And through them, God spoke again. You build houses of stone, but you will not live in them. You plant vineyards, but you will not drink their wine. The prophets cried out, Amos, Hosea, Micah, but the people silenced them. Some were mocked, some were beaten. Their words were too uncomfortable for a nation addicted to comfort. The warning that no one heard. Time moved on. Empires rose in the north, the Assyrians fierce and unstoppable. Rumors spread that they were coming south. But Samaria laughed. Our walls are strong. Our God will protect us. Even when villages on the border began to burn, even when refugees flooded the gates, they still refused to listen. The prophet spoke again. Because you have turned away, a nation will rise against you. You will be led away with hooks in your noses and ropes around your necks. But to the people, these were only words, old tales from angry preachers. And so the final chapter began. The siege. It came like a shadow at dawn. The Assyrian army surrounded Samaria. Wave after wave, their banners dark against the horizon. Inside the city, panic grew. Water ran low. Grain disappeared. Mothers wept for their children. Fathers stared at empty jars. The priests called to Baal, but the skies remained dry. They offered more sacrifices, but heaven stayed silent. 3 years passed. 3 years of hunger, fear, and silence. And then one morning, the walls of Samaria cracked under fire and stone. The Assyrians stormed the gates. The city that once called itself blessed was broken. Its people were taken, led away to distant lands, never to return. The terraces that once echoed with laughter now echoed with wind, and the hill that once glowed with sunlight was left in ruin and ash, the lesson buried in the dust. Today, if you stand among the ruins of Samaria, you can still feel it, a kind of silence that speaks louder than words. Stone foundations buried in wild grass, walls half swallowed by time. The bones of a city that thought it could live without God. But this is not just history. It's a mirror, a reminder that no matter how powerful, how wealthy, or how beautiful a nation becomes, if it forgets the one who gave it life, it will crumble from within long before any army arrives. Samaria's fall is not only a story of judgment. It's a story of mercy, of a God who warned again and again, who sent voices into noise, who waited for his people to turn back. And maybe that same voice still calls to us today. The legacy of Samaria, lessons written in stone. The wind moves softly across the hills of Samaria. It carries with it the whispers of a kingdom long gone, the voices of merchants, prophets, kings, and mothers who once called this place home. All that remains now are stones, cracked, weathered, and silent. But these stones still speak. They tell a story not only of judgment, but of love, not only of failure, but of grace. The echo of forgotten promises. When the people of Israel turned away, God didn't destroy them out of rage. He wept over them, like a parent watching their child walk in the fire. He called out again and again, through prophets, through drought, through miracles, hoping they would turn back. Even in their rebellion, he never stopped reaching for them. And though Samaria fell, the story didn't end there. Because centuries later, on that very same soil, another voice would rise, one that spoke not of wrath, but redemption. The woman at the well. In the Gospel of John, we read that Jesus himself walked through Samaria. By then, the once great city was nothing more than ruins, its people despised and forgotten by the Jews. Yet there, in the heat of the day, he stopped by a well, and a Samaritan woman came to draw water. She was an outcast, shunned by her own people, burdened by shame. But Jesus spoke to her. If you knew the gift of God, he said, you would have asked me, and I would have given you living water. Living water, the very thing Samaria once lost. A city that had traded away the true God for idols of rain and harvest was now offered a spring that would never run dry. In that moment, the curse of Samaria met its cure. Grace returned to the very place where faith had died, and that woman, forgotten by her world, became the first to proclaim the Messiah to her people. From ruin to redemption. Isn't it remarkable? The same land that once witnessed judgment became the stage for one of the most beautiful acts of mercy in history. It's as if God was saying, even here, even after everything, I can rebuild what was broken. The ruins of Samaria remind us that no fall is final when grace steps in. Nations crumble, empires fade, but God's mercy remains. He rebuilds hearts the way he once rebuilt cities, one stone, one life at a time. And perhaps that's why the Bible keeps returning to stories like Samaria's, because they aren't just about them, they're about us, a mirror for our time. Look around our world today. We build towers of technology instead of temples of stone. We chase wealth, power, and comfort. And sometimes, just like Samaria, we forget the one who gave us breath. We still have our altars. They just look different now. They glow in the blue light of our screens. They whisper to us in advertisements, in pride, in fear. And yet, the same God who calls Samaria calls to us still. He doesn't thunder from the sky. He speaks softly, through conscience, through kindness, through the longing in our hearts for something eternal. He says, come back. You were never meant to thirst alone. The hill and the horizon. So when you think of Samaria, don't just picture a fallen city. Picture a hill bathed in golden light, where judgment and mercy once met. Picture the well where Jesus sat, offering life to someone who thought she was beyond saving. Picture the ruins not as an end, but as a beginning, because that's what grace does. It turns ashes into altars. It turns forgotten places into holy ground. And maybe, somewhere deep within your own life, there's a little piece of Samaria too, a place that's fallen, broken, forgotten. If so, listen to the whisper that still echoes through time. Return to me, and I will return to you. The story of Samaria isn't a tragedy. It's a love story, one written in dust, sealed in blood, and fulfilled in the living water that still flows today.